Part 1. The Golden Country. A Mathatober Moon. Hallmarks of the Aegis. As Jin and Laura make their way through the war-ravaged Lasaria woodlands, they are accosted by a giant made of black steel. Unable to put this foe down for good, the pair is saved by a mysterious cloaked man and his powerful blade clad only in white. Who are these two? What secrets does the man have of Jin's past? And just how much power is his blade hiding behind her visage of nonchalance? Every piece of official material for Xenoblade 2 paints Rex as the main character, with a boy-meets-girl kind of story as he comes to know and love Pyra and Mythra. But a case can be made that if you include Torna as part of the main story, Xenoblade 2 is actually more about the character arc of the girl, and more specifically, the Mythra part of the girl, as she meets the boy that's her true driver. Today, I will be making that case, so spoilers for main game Xenoblade 2 and Torna the Golden Country. The basic idea is that while Rex is clearly in the spotlight for the main game, if you take Torna into consideration, which doesn't focus on Rex but does still have Mythra, it shows that Mythra goes through a complete character arc as well, possibly more resembling one that a typical JRPG hero would have, and eventually resulting in a much more character-defining moment to cap out her journey than the one Rex has at the end of the game. Xenoblade 2 is much less of a coming-of-age story for Rex than one was for Shulk. While he does learn lessons and clearly mature as a person through it, it's made pretty implicit that he still has some growing to do, while I'd say Shulk reaches a bit more of a conclusive thing at the end. And despite this, Mythra actually goes through a complete character arc that does hit a capstone-like conclusion. So we're just gonna go through the story of Xenoblade 2 in order, but this time focusing on Mythra instead of all the other stuff I've done in all the other videos where I've done this kind of thing. Chronologically speaking, she's first introduced from Laura and Jin's perspective near the beginning of the Golden Country, about a year after her initial awakening. Here, she's portrayed as incredibly immature, arrogant, rude, way too trigger-happy with Siren, unwilling to listen to Adam, and not caring a whole lot about the fate of the world, despite being one of the only people powerful enough to save it. AKA, not all that different from Malos if you really think about it. A lot of Torna's story revolves around her developing into a much more caring individual, and while she doesn't get to the level of caring as, say, Pyra, she develops genuine bonds with the rest of the party, and wants to fight Malos beyond just her obligation as the other Aegis. She does, of course, get roasted a ton throughout the story, but it's largely coming from a good place. The other characters see her as the emotionally immature child she is, and call her out on her behavior because they want her to improve, become better, and become the good person they know she can be. Even by the first encounter with Malos, she's already changed so much, from being a lot more like him at the beginning, not being able to comprehend his boredom as a reason for his actions, proudly proclaiming what humans and blades can do together, while working far better with her driver and using Siren much more reasonably, to say nothing of her attitude when heading off for the final battle. The little smile she gives the boys while departing says so much more than any of her words when compared to the beginning of the game. While the downfall of Torna is largely caused by Mythra going berserk, it's worth noting that she only summons Siren in order to protect Jin when Malos gets the upper hand on him, and her losing control is from Oresco and seemingly Milton getting hit. She has a bloodlusted side that comes out and wreaks tons of havoc over the Tornan Titan, but it only came out when she was trying to protect her friends, and ultimately, it was that side that failed, not her main personality. Pyra was created when she saw that Milton was killed, created because she was scared of her own power after seeing what she'd done. In addition to being a much less aggressive person and far weaker as a blade, Pyra also shares her older sister's desire to be sealed away so she'll never endanger the world again, and Adam agrees with this, does the third sword thing, and shoves her on the ancient ship. Torna ends with Rex approaching Pyra's holding chamber, and the first 3 chapters of the main game focus much more so on Pyra and him getting close to her, as she manipulates him to take her to Elysium so she can die, ridding the world of her threat, as well as laying the board and setting the pieces for the much more significant back half of the game, so we'll just skip ahead a bit to when Mythra first manifests at the end of Chapter 3. The thing to break the seal she was using to hold her power back? It was Rex rushing in like an idiot and doing something that would have gotten himself killed. She risks unleashing her power in order to protect someone that she, or at least Pyra, cares about. The Mythra of Chapter 4 is much closer to how she is at the beginning of Torna than the end, but for a different reason. She does care about people, but she's scared. The last time she let herself get close to them, the fall of Torna happened, and she doesn't want to risk that again. So she starts acting her old abrasive self in order to push them away, and instead of wanting to save the world, she wants to save the world from herself. Despite this, she is still much more careful than before, insisting on working with Rex to better use her powers, and also being far more careful with her use of Siren. She, of course, warms up slowly to the new party over time, striking up a friendship with Poppy and keeping Nia's secret safe until Chapter 7, but mostly spends the next few chapters, or the middle third of the game, hiding her past, while trying to figure out exactly what the hell happened to people like Hayes, Jin, and Amalthus over the past 500 years. There's not really much else to say until the end of Chapter 7, because all that happens to her happens gradually, and even the big attempted sacrifice moment at the end of Chapter 6 was 100% Pyra. At the end of Chapter 7, Pyra and Mythra are both begging Rex to let them go and escape, but he goes into his whole speech about his promise to stand with them and take them to Elysium, and how he now understands their pain and accepts them for it, vowing to prevent another Tornan tragedy from occurring and all that. This is what causes the girls to finally accept their powers and change their goals to reaching Elysium and stopping Jin and Malos, instead of reaching the Architect and dying. But the most important part of this is Mythra. It's not just Rex accepting her fear and realizing he's willing to take responsibility for her and her power, but also Mythra fully accepting him and his intentions after trying to keep herself from getting close to anyone, while also probably remembering an old conversation with Jin and a weird vision she had centuries ago. Like any healthy relationship, it's a two-way thing. He accepts her for her flaws and recognizes his past mistakes, while she realizes that she trusts him enough to use her power responsibly, which is what allows her to release her inhibitions and form the Mythra half of Numa. The healing process that was 500 years in the making is finally complete, and her character largely returns to her best self we saw before the final battle of Torna. I am lost no longer. There's really no more fitting line than that. The last 3 chapters then happen, of course, and Mythra actually shows up more than Pyra when outside the Ascended form, but for the most part we can skip close to the end. A few things are still worth noting though. At the beginning of Chapter 8, she basically makes her peace with Pyra and they resolve themselves to work ahead as one and all that. And she also makes her promise with Poppy, suggesting that she could already guess how things will end, and apologizes for accidentally scaring her with a remark about machines, showing that while she still doesn't have the greatest social skills and tact, she's at least cognizant of her faults and more caring to her friends. She's also able to figure out that Laura is within Jin, and as Numa realizes that Malos is just a slave to his driver's will. We also get the I'm Rex's blade moment, which definitely harkens back to the comments she made before the first Malos fight in the DLC, removing any remaining doubt about whether or not she sees Rex as being on the same level as Adam, or recognizes him as a worthy driver. And for the second time in 3 weeks, we find ourselves at the end of Xenoblade 2, but don't worry, this time I'll be brief, there's not going to be an entire other video tacked to the end of this one. The only thing that really matters here is Numa's sacrifice at the end. Numa is a combination of Pyra and Mythra. She's not a third character, she is traits and stuff from the two of them combined, and you basically get to choose which one is slightly more dominant. Pyra tried to sacrifice herself back in Chapter 6, yeah, but I couldn't really see Mythra doing the same thing prior to her arc coming full circle in Chapter 7. Yes, they do come back and lots of people don't like that, but it's clear that Numa thought she'd be gone for good and planned for this sacrifice, Mythra part included. This is what really completes Mythra's arc for me, going from an aloof but powerful being who cares not about the world, to someone with a close group of companions she's willing to fight for, to a broken individual who's scared of her power and shackled by past failure, to someone who's healing and gradually opening up and trusting others again, and finally to a righteous defender of all rest who's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to save those she loves. I just really hope she kept her memories at the end so she can reap the rewards that come with all that development and isn't reset back to zero, but what do I know, this is probably going to be in the realm of headcanons because, you know, Xeno games and following up on previous plots aren't really things that go together. And yeah, that's all I got. Jokes about Mythra actually being the main character of XC2 have basically been going around since Torna released, and I only recently realized when thinking about it that you can totally construe things for that actually being true, and that's pretty much where this came from. I didn't realize that you could go this in depth on it. It was originally going to be a Xenobites, and then I realized, oh, I could totally extend this to 10 minutes, even without the Fire Emblem bit. I could have talked more, but I felt like being more concise. Xenogears Recap Part 2, it's recorded, just needs editing. It's probably going to be another couple weeks because while it didn't come out last week, or the week before because Fire Emblem, it can't come out this week because I'm actually busy with school stuff. So, yeah, but don't worry, it's in the pipeline. They're going to be coming out a lot more regularly once I'm done with the summer semester, because I don't actually have school during the fall, but that's very besides the point, and this is a very run-on outro that's a lot longer than it needs to be just to show the patrons and then the actual ending card, and until next time, this is Luxin signing off, bye.